Hello, everybody. Welcome to Happy Hour with KMA. We normally gather here to talk about things like marketing funnels and beverage menus and how to get the most out of our POS. But today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to talk about burnout. Burnout in the hospitality industry is so common that it's baked into the culture. 6-day work weeks, double shifts, sleeping next to our phones so we don't miss the endless stream of emails, texts, DMs, Zoom invites. So much so that we neglect not only our health, our pets, our relationships, and our laundry, but we wear it like a badge of honor. I should know I used to be such a person. What I learned more recently than you might imagine is that the need to work constantly, whether it's self-inflicted or asked of us, is actually the symptom of a broken business culture. Let's reframe this issue, break the cycle of abuse, and learn to avoid running ourselves and our teams into the ground. Division of responsibility. As a member of upper leadership, it's our job to structure our organization so that our responsibilities are divided in a way that makes sense. A couple of mistakes that I've encountered in the past. 1, allowing a handful of leaders to do the brunt of the heavy lifting while others take up space or ceremonial positions. Asking leaders to take on additional responsibilities or perform dual roles without providing the support or resources that allow them to delegate some of their previous responsibilities to somebody else. And 3, assigning a leader a great deal of responsibility without the corresponding amount of authority. So how do we fix it? First, be sure to draft descriptions for each role. Then line them up and make sure that everything seems in balance. Now, the most important part, hold each team member accountable for their specific performance and make sure there are consequences for falling short, as well as incentives for surpassing expectation. Now, if you're expanding your organization, you're going to need to add leadership as you go, but there are ways to streamline or creatively juggle responsibilities. Sometimes you're going to require a leader to identify and train their replacement, and that's okay. You just have to be sure to step in if they are struggling, or you risk stunting yourself. And yes, assigning too much responsibility without the commensurate authority is a recipe for failure. Keep in mind the reverse is true as well. If you give someone too much authority without enough responsibility, this is what leads to abuse of power and resentment of quote-unquote corporate personnel. Recruiting and retaining cast members. As a leader, you may have the best intentions when it comes to keeping your cast happy and engaged, but if you are constantly struggling to recruit new cast members, you risk burning out your core team. And it's ironic that it's our best team members that are most prone to burnout because they are always the ones that say yes. Unexpected and challenging circumstances are always going to happen in our industry, but if it's becoming the exception rather than the rule, the problem is systemic. The labor shortage is not a permanent condition courtesy of the pandemic. To attract talent, create a campaign, just as you would for a guest. Get out there and draft. Meet people. And finally, don't fumble the ball at the goal line. Make sure that prospective talent is received with the warmth and the hospitality that we want our guests to be received with. Now we must do the unthinkable. Take the time and energy at the outset. Put the resources into the people because they're 10 times more likely to return if you do. And here's some other tips that I give to my clients. Give and receive feedback. As much as you're convinced that today's cast member is not interested in our opinion, they actually are, and they're really interested in giving theirs. Contests and tournaments, tap into your team's competitive spirit. And finally, money talks. Bonuses and incentives for sure, but some incentives can be free. It could be a shout out at a pre-shift meeting. Finally, I do think that we need to revise our labor budget upward. Minimum wage has gone up in many states and continues to do so. Other industries have raised the wage that they are willing to pay. Whether you are in a tip credit state or not, the tipping culture in America has gone to shit. So we need to find a way to counteract that with wages or bonuses or service charges. Communication. As previously touched upon, KMA advocates and implements a lot more educational and development resources than are typical of the hospitality industry. We are therefore accustomed to a lot of feedback on the part of clients with respect to how that is impossible, that there are already far too many Zooms and Teams and Meets and demands on their leaders' time that we can't possibly add another thing to the schedule. We have to reprioritize. Every single meeting that we expect our leaders to attend should have some kind of enrichment or educational component to it, because education and development is how we ultimately avoid burnout in the first place. If we've already loaded up our leaders and our team's schedules to the brim with meetings and administrative obligations, consider how productive those sessions are. Could things be streamlined? Could things be combined? Are people leaving renewed and rejuvenated, or are we exhausting them? Are we giving them something, or are we just asking them for stuff? And related, we have to stop telling our leaders that we want them on the floor, not in the office, and then loading them up with more paperwork. Now, not all paperwork is pointless. Some of it is very vital from a legal perspective, such as completing incident reports and updating employee files. I think that nightly reports can play a very constructive role in a leader's development and in business development, especially when it asks them to reflect on what has just happened and what could be done differently going forward. But get rid of anything that is redundant and anything that is pointless. Stop wasting people's time. Work-life balance. I try to avoid scheduling cast members 6 days a week. I also try to avoid scheduling cast members 1 day a week, and the reasons are related. I want them to be invested, but I don't want them to be so invested that they lose sight of the big picture. I tried to take this policy and apply it to myself. Although I do some kind of work every day, I try to take at least a part of that day for myself, if I can. Now, whether you agree with this personally or professionally, how does a healthy work-life balance actually increase our bottom line? Because that's what we care about, right? For starters, the team is less likely to be going through the motions and more likely to actually be interacting. Second, the team is less likely to miss something, to make a mistake, to fail to prevent an altercation. And third, the team is less likely to ultimately grow to resent their role, but rather they'll continue to value it. If we don't spend enough time at home, we can't reset. If we don't spend enough time outside of our venue, we can't be good ambassadors for it. We can't meet new guests. We can't meet new talent. We can't get inspired by the things that other people are doing. We need context. If we spent as many as 8 fewer hours in our venues, could we be 30% more effective? That's something to think about. Sometimes we and our team can be seduced by this idea that it's our venue that gives us purpose. But you gotta flip that on its head. It's our job to give our venue purpose. We need to fill up. I think I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know what you think. Cheers.